The day that produced nothing. You worked all day. You answered messages. You switched tabs. You sat through meetings. You checked one notification that became 20 minutes. You solved small problems so quickly that everyone assumed you were productive. But before you sleep, answer one uncomfortable question. What did you create that required the best of your mind? Not what did you touch, not what did you reply to. What became more valuable because you gave it uninterrupted thought? If the answer is not much, you are not necessarily lazy. You may be living inside a system that rewards visible motion while quietly destroying concentration. That is the problem Cal Newport examines in Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. Newport defines deep work as professional activity performed with undivided attention that pushes your abilities and creates value that is difficult to reproduce. Its opposite is shallow work, logistical, reactive activity that keeps things moving but rarely changes what you are capable of producing. This is an independent summary and commentary, not the full book. We will explore Newport's central case, challenge the parts that do not fit every life, and build a practical system for turning focus into capital. Because attention is not merely a productivity trick. It determines which ideas you can finish, which skills you can master, and how much of your own life you actually notice. So keep one question beside you as you listen. If you recovered 10 hours of real focus every week, what could exist a year from now that does not exist today? Put that answer in the comments in 3 words or fewer: a business, a book, a skill, better grades, or your own answer. A named priority is harder for shallow work to quietly erase. 1. Busy is a costume productivity wears. Modern work has a visibility problem. Deep thinking is quiet, slow, and difficult to display. Shallow activity announces itself. A full inbox, a crowded calendar, and rapid replies look like evidence. Imagine 2 employees. The first responds within 5 minutes, attends every optional meeting, comments on every thread, and ends the week exhausted. The second protects 2 hours each morning, replies later, declines meetings without a clear purpose, and finishes a strategy that saves the company months of confusion. Who looked busier on Tuesday? Who created more value by Friday? When useful output is difficult to measure, people often use busyness as a substitute. Newport calls attention to this culture because it allows an organization and an individual to confuse responsiveness with contribution. Look at your own week. Which activities produce an actual asset? A decision, design, chapter, analysis, lesson, relationship, skill, or solved problem? Which activities merely proved that you were available? Availability has value. A hospital, sales desk, support team, or family cannot function if everyone disappears into private concentration. The error is not shallow work itself. The error is giving shallow work the entire day because it arrives with urgency and witnesses. Deep work usually has neither. The report due next month does not buzz. The language you want to learn does not send a red badge. The business system you need to design will not complain when ignored. Important work often loses because it is patient. Here's a quick test. Think of your most important current goal. Now open yesterday in your mind. How many uninterrupted minutes did that goal receive? If the answer is 0, your priorities may be honest in language, but false in architecture. The first lesson of deep work is not try harder. It is to stop judging importance by how loudly a task requests attention. 2. Every switch leaves something behind. You are writing a difficult paragraph. A message appears. You answer in 30 seconds and return. Technically, the interruption was brief. Mentally, it may not be over. Part of your attention remains attached to the message, whether the person will reply, whether your tone was right, what must happen next. Researchers often describe this as attention residue, the trace of one task that follows you into another. So the cost of switching is larger than the seconds you can see. It includes the time needed to rebuild the mental model you abandoned. Consider a financial analyst working with 12 assumptions, a writer holding the emotional logic of a scene, or a programmer mapping how several functions interact. When interrupted, they don't simply stop typing. A temporary world collapses. Returning means reconstructing it. Have you ever read the same sentence 4 times because your mind kept leaving? That's not a reading problem. It's an evidence that your attention has too many open contracts. Now notice how often we interrupt ourselves without an external request. The work becomes uncertain, so we check email. The idea becomes uncomfortable, so we reach for a phone. Boredom appears for 3 seconds, and we eliminate it before it can become thought. This matters because difficult work often feels worst immediately before it becomes clear. If you escape at the first friction, you repeatedly pay the cost of beginning, but rarely collect the reward of depth. Try a one-day experiment. On paper, draw a small mark each time you change tasks before the current one reaches a natural stopping point. Don't judge the marks, count them. At the end of the day, ask how many switches were chosen, how many were required, and how many were emotional exits disguised as work. You can't protect what you refuse to measure. 3. Focus is a capacity, not a personality. People often describe concentration as though it were a trait assigned at birth. I'm just not a focused person. But if you repeatedly train your brain to expect novelty every few seconds, sustained attention will feel unnatural. That feeling doesn't prove incapacity, it proves adaptation. Newport's argument is hopeful and demanding. Focus can be trained, but every training session has a direction. 20 minutes of single-task reading trains one direction. Checking your phone during every quiet moment trains the other. Suppose you haven't exercised in years. You wouldn't begin with a marathon and interpret exhaustion as your identity. Yet many people attempt a 3-hour focus block on Monday, fail after 18 minutes, and announce that deep work is impossible. Begin smaller. Choose one cognitively demanding task. Set a timer for 25 minutes. Remove the phone from reach, not face down, not silent, physically elsewhere. Close every tab that the task does not require. Keep one sheet beside you. When an unrelated thought appears, write one word on the sheet and return to the work. Your goal is not to feel peaceful. Your goal is to return each time attention leaves. That return is the repetition. It is the mental equivalent of lifting the weight. After a week, increase the block. 40 minutes, then 50. Track completed depth, not heroic intention. Here's the question most productivity advice avoids. What feeling are you trying to not experience when you become distracted? Confusion? Fear that the work will be mediocre? The loneliness of solving something without feedback? The possibility that your best effort may still fail? Distraction is sometimes a technology problem. It is also sometimes emotional anesthesia. A stronger focus practice, therefore, includes permission to be temporarily bad. Write the weak first page. Sketch the unfinished strategy. Sit with the question before searching for someone else's answer. Depth grows when your nervous system learns that uncertainty is survivable. Do not depend on willpower. Build a ritual. If this is helping you protect something that matters, not simply feel productive for a few minutes, subscribe to Rare Mind Audio. Every episode turns a powerful book into a system you can use after the audio ends. If every focus session begins with a negotiation, where should I work? What should I do? Can I check one thing first? Your energy is spent before the task begins. Newport recommends rituals that specify when, where, how, and for how long deep work will happen. A ritual removes repeated decisions. Your ritual does not need a private cabin in the mountains. It can be a kitchen table from 6:30 to 7:15, headphones, one document, water ready, phone in another room. It can be a library desk twice a week. It can be a shared household agreement. When the lamp is on, interrupt only for something genuinely urgent. The quality of the ritual depends on its clarity. What will you work on? My project is vague. Draft the opening argument and list the evidence still missing is executable. What is forbidden? Email, analytics, social media, news, and research that is not essential to the current step. How will you know the block is complete? Time elapsed, words drafted, problems attempted, decisions made, or pages studied. When will you recover? Concentration without recovery becomes depletion wearing a premium label. Consider a remote worker who starts each day inside the inbox. By the time she reaches her important project, she has accepted everyone else's agenda. A simple reversal changes the economics. One protected block before communication, then a deliberate window for replies. Would everyone approve? Possibly not. That is why focus needs communication. Tell collaborators when you will respond. Create an emergency route. Deliver reliably. People tolerate delayed availability when they trust the system. Ask yourself, what is the smallest focus ritual you could repeat 4 times next week without needing a different life? Design that, not the fantasy schedule of a person with no obligations. The ability to be bored is a competitive advantage. There was a time when waiting in a line meant waiting. Now it means stimulation. Elevators, traffic lights, meals alone, the first minute in bed, every empty space is immediately filled. Why does that matter? Because a mind that never practices low stimulation begins to experience normal thought as deprivation. Newport's advice to embrace boredom is not a celebration of misery, it is attention conditioning. If you want to concentrate on command, you cannot spend every other moment training the expectation of novelty on command. Try this today. Choose one ordinary activity, walking to the store, drinking coffee, waiting for transportation, and do not add input. No podcast, no music, no scrolling. Let the mind finish a thought it did not have time to finish. At first, you may feel a strange pull. That pull is useful information. It reveals how automatically stimulation has become regulation. Another practice is scheduled internet use. Instead of checking whenever desire appears, choose the next time you will go online for non-essential activity. When the urge arrives, notice it and continue. You are teaching desire that it can make a request without becoming a command. But be careful with moral superiority. Phones are not uniquely evil, and online connection can be essential, joyful, and creative. The goal is not digital purity, it is agency. Can you decide when a tool enters your attention? Can you leave it without carrying 10 unfinished emotions? Can you experience 5 quiet minutes without treating yourself as a problem to solve? If not, the deepest interruption may not be a notification, it may be the belief that every unoccupied second must be consumed. Drain the shallow tide. If one focused hour would help someone you know reclaim a project they keep postponing, share this episode with them. Send it as an invitation. Choose 1 hour this week, protect it together, and compare what you created. Even a trained mind cannot do deep work if the calendar contains no room. Shallow tasks multiply because each one appears harmless. A status meeting, a reply all message, a report nobody reads. 5 minutes to check a metric. But small obligations behave like water. They enter every unprotected space. The answer is not to eliminate administration, it is to budget it. Estimate how much deep work your role realistically supports. For many knowledge workers, 2 to 4 true hours is already demanding. Place those hours first where possible, then group shallow tasks into defined windows. Batch email instead of grazing. Replace a meeting with a written update when discussion is unnecessary. Require an agenda and decision owner. Turn repeated questions into a checklist or short guide. Set office hours for requests that otherwise fragment the week. Now audit one recurring task with 4 questions. What value does it create? What would break if it disappeared? Could it happen less often? Could a system handle it with less attention? Do not optimize nonsense. Remove it. There is also a social media test in Newport's work. Do not evaluate a tool only by whether it offers any benefit. Ask whether its benefits substantially support the things you value compared with its costs. That is a stricter question. Every platform can provide information, opportunity, or connection. The issue is whether those benefits justify the attention pattern it installs in you. And what about artificial intelligence? AI can remove shallow work, summarize information, generate alternatives, and accelerate production. It can also become a more sophisticated escape from thinking. If you ask a tool to produce an answer before you have formed a question, speed may increase while judgment weakens. Use AI to compress logistics, challenge reasoning, or explore options. Do not automatically outsource the exact cognitive struggle that would make you more capable. Before using it, ask, am I removing friction that has no value, or avoiding friction that contains the learning? That question will matter more every year. Where deep work advice needs reality. Deep work is easier to praise when someone else is answering the door. Caregivers, parents of young children, frontline workers, managers, clinicians, support teams, and people with unpredictable health may not control long, uninterrupted blocks. An employee may understand focus perfectly and still work inside a culture that expects instant response. This is where productivity advice can become unfair. It turns structural limits into personal failure. So adapt the principle. Depth is not defined by a particular aesthetic. It does not require a silent office, 4 morning hours, or a dramatic retreat. It means giving meaningful cognitive effort the best boundary your circumstances allow. That may be 3 20-minute blocks. It may be voice notes captured during a commute and assembled later. It may be a team focus hour in which everyone agrees not to message. It may be one protected evening a week supported by a partner, friend, or childcare exchange. For managers, the highest leverage move may not be protecting your own calendar. It may be reducing unnecessary interruption for 10 other people. There is another limitation. Collaboration can itself be deep. A rigorous conversation, rehearsal, surgical team, or design critique may require intense collective attention. Solitude is one method, not the definition. Finally, focus should not become another way to measure human worth. Some seasons are for production, others are for healing, caregiving, grief, or survival. A person is not shallow because life is demanding everything they have. The humane question is not, why can't you focus like the ideal worker? It is, what form of meaningful attention is possible here, and what support would expand it? The focus capital system. Focus behaves like capital because it can be protected, invested, compounded, or wasted. Here is a 4-part system for applying the book. First, protect. Choose one daily or near-daily focus window. Decide its start, end, task, location, and emergency rule. Put the phone outside physical reach. Prevent the interruption before asking willpower to resist it. Second, train. Begin at your honest capacity. If 25 minutes is difficult, that is the correct training weight. During the block, record distractions on paper and return. Add 5 minutes only after consistency, not after enthusiasm. Third, produce. Every block must point toward a visible outcome. Do not merely work on the presentation. Decide the argument, draft 3 slides, test the assumption, write the first 500 words. Focus becomes motivating when it leaves evidence. Fourth, recover. End deliberately. Write the next step so your mind does not keep rehearsing it. Walk, sleep, exercise, connect, or do something absorbing that is not another stream of work-shaped input. Recovery is where sustained performance becomes possible. For 7 days, keep a simple ledger with 4 numbers: planned focus minutes, completed focus minutes, meaningful output, and 1 major distraction. Do not chase a perfect score. Look for a pattern. Does focus fail at a particular time? Does one person or platform repeatedly break the boundary? Is the task too vague? Are you attempting depth when hungry, exhausted, or emotionally overloaded? Does the phone enter your hand before you consciously decide? At the end of the week, make 1 environmental change, 1 calendar change, and 1 behavioral change. Environmental: remove the phone, use a site blocker, change rooms, prepare materials. Calendar: place depth earlier, shorten a meeting, create a communication window. Behavioral: practice 1 no-input walk, define the next task in advance, or pause before switching. Now build a realistic week. Monday through Thursday, protect 1 45-minute block. Friday, use the same time to review what those blocks produced. That's only 3 hours of depth and 45 minutes of review, not a monastery, not a total lifestyle redesign. Before each block, write 1 sentence. When this session ends, I will have completed with visible evidence. After each block, write 2 more. I moved forward by, and the next physical action is. This closing note matters because the brain tends to keep unfinished work active. A clear next step allows the session to end without forcing you to reconstruct everything tomorrow. Also, create a shutdown ritual for the workday. Review unresolved tasks. Capture them in 1 trusted place. Check tomorrow's calendar. Decide the first important action. Then use a consistent phrase, something as simple as, "Work is closed for today." The phrase is not magic. The review behind it tells your nervous system that nothing essential must be rehearsed all night. What would change if rest stopped being accidental exhaustion and became part of the production system? Deep work is not an argument for making every hour intense. It's an argument for contrast, depth when you work, genuine release when you stop. Then answer the question from the beginning. If you recovered 10 hours of real focus every week, what could exist a year from now? 10 hours a week is more than 500 hours a year. That could become a manuscript, a qualification, a portfolio, a business system, a body of research, a new language, or the ability to solve problems that currently intimidate you. The hours are not hidden somewhere in the future. Many are being spent now in fragments too small to remember. Closing. Become difficult to distract. There is 1 small habit that supports every idea in this episode. Read 2 or 3 pages of a good book each day. Do not wait for an empty weekend or a perfect morning. A few pages keep your attention in contact with deeper thinking. If you can't sit down to read, listen to the full audiobook on Audible or another legal audiobook service while commuting, walking, cooking, or doing routine work. Listening while busy won't create focus by itself, but it can replace some mental noise with useful ideas. Afterward, write down 1 sentence and give it 10 uninterrupted minutes of thought. The rare advantage is not being the person who works the longest. It's being the person who can place the whole mind on the right problem long enough for something original to happen. Deep work matters because the environment is moving in the opposite direction. More messages, more feeds, more generated content, more pressure to react before understanding. In that world, concentration becomes both a professional advantage and a form of self-possession. You do not need to abandon technology. You need to stop allowing every tool to write its own rules for your attention. Protect a window, train the return, produce something visible, recover without guilt, then repeat. Tomorrow, before opening the inbox, give the best 30 minutes of your mind to something that cannot be completed by reflex. And when the urge to escape appears, do not interpret it as failure. Notice it. Stay for one more minute. That minute is where the training begins. This has been a Rare Mind audio summary and commentary on Deep Work by Cal Newport. It is not the full book or a substitute for the original. Read or purchase the book for Newport's complete arguments, examples, and 4 rules. One final question. At the end of your next workday, what do you want to be able to say you created, not merely answered? Write it in the comments. If this episode helped you, tap like and subscribe. Then close this video, protect one focus block, and make the first visible piece of it.